Okay, welcome Amarjeet
Let me
Sohi.
see. Thank you so much for having me and for the opportunity to join you.
We are so excited to have you here and to share more about who you are as a leader, more about your values. So as you know, BPW Edmonton's vision is to one day have a boundless world where everyone reaches their full potential. So we do this by developing business, professional, and leadership potential in women through advocacy,
Mhm.
education, and empowerment. So can you tell us a little bit about how you support your team in helping them reach their full potential?
Yeah. First of all, I want to acknowledge and start by acknowledging that we are gathered on Treaty 6 territory. I came to this country and my wife came to this country with nothing. We build our lives here. You're talking about potential, and this is a community that has helped untap our potential and be part of it and ability to give back to make Edmonton even a better place. We have a daughter. She's 27 years old, and we have done everything that we could possibly do to build her capacity to be successful, trying to give her the best education, trying to save enough that we could put her through university. And we are very proud of what she's able to do so far and the field that she in. So for me, empowerment always been part of my leadership style by bringing people together. And I believe that the best way to succeed is having diverse and empowered voices at the table and who can make collective decisions and make better decisions and more forward looking decisions. That's the philosophy that I have followed in my work during city council, and that's the philosophy that I will follow if I am elected as mayor. One of the things that we are doing as part of our team, as campaign team, is is mentor young people, mentor young women, particularly women from racialized backgrounds, giving them leadership role in the team, and where they're not ready to take leadership role, we are giving them more ability and learning opportunities for them to do so. And that is the kind of philosophy that I would like to deploy if I'm elected a mayor. And there's some good stuff going on in the city on helping women and be empowered to run for office. And I would like to build on those mentorship opportunities so there's more confidence and also the skills that are necessary for women either to run for office or run a business or be an administrator and a senior leader within different organizations. And I believe that that pays a dividend. Diversity of opinion, diversity of perspectives is something that is needed to build stronger organizations. So that's what I have practiced in my work, and that's we continue to practice in this campaign. And this is what I'm committed to do if I get elected.
Awesome. That's so great to hear. Kind of following up on that just a little bit more, how do you model leadership for your team and really promote that well-being? Because it's so important for us to take care of ourselves as well. So how do you make sure that your team is modeling that?
Mhm. So this is my seventh campaign, and I know that campaigns can be really hard on people mentally as well as physically. They can be hard on the candidate's family, and the team. So I always try to promote flexibility as much as possible among our team, making sure that we have multiple people responsible and touching on number of issues, that we are not putting too much onus and burden on one individual. So there's a sharing of responsibilities, and also that empowers as well, because we learn from each other. Safety is paramount to me. We make sure that our volunteers go in pairs when they go out door knocking. And we don't tolerate, I personally do not tolerate abusive behavior from anyone. And we make sure that our team understands that. And for me, living the value that I practice and modeling those values is important, and that's what I have done in my life, and that's what we continue to do. So we provide support to each other. We come together often to get to know each other better and provide the support necessary as a team. And that's the kind of work that I have been doing in the past, and that's the work I will do if I get elected.
You mentioned diversity earlier in our interview here. Do you have a formal statement on diversity, equity, and inclusion? And what's your stance on that?
Well, one of the reasons I'm running is because I firmly believe that our city must reflect the diversity that we have. When I talk about diversity, I'm not just talking about cultural diversity or racial diversity. I'm talking about gender diversity. I'm talking about religious diversity. I'm talking about sexual orientation. I'm talking about people's abilities, or people who may face physical barriers to participation. And I have practiced that in my work. When I was appointed infrastructure minister, we were setting up a brand new ministry, and we had to hire close to 18 to 20 people. And I set a target uh, to my chief of staff, saying, our office must reflect what Canada is. And that's exactly what we achieved in that ministry. And that's what I strive to achieve in our campaign. And that's what I will try to strive to achieve if I do elected as mayor. Because diversity is not just a nice thing to have. Diversity actually fosters innovation. It brings people together from different perspectives with different ideas to solve problems different ways, right? So I think it really adds value in getting things done in a better way, and in doing them in a way that actually the decision making process is much more effective and long lasting, because you do take that decision from reflecting on different ways and different philosophies and different points of views.
For sure. Yeah, it's not just checking the box, right? It actually has such a fantastic impact as well, which is great.
As leaders, your role is to draw people to you, people who know the subject matter expertise, right? People who know in areas that you may have not as much knowledge, right? So that ability to attract and that ability to empower people has served me really well. Thank you for having me, and look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Wonderful. Yeah, we'd love to meet you in person sometime. And we're also eager to hear more about your campaign leading up to the October 18th election. So good luck to you, and thank you so much for your time. Kim Kershal, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. A bit on my background, I was an executive assistant actually to Larry Langley, who was a former city councillor in Edmonton. Okay. And that is where I learned how to navigate the city bureaucracy. And that was a really good experience, because it gave me a knowledge of not just how the city works, but it gave me the ability to think outside the box and try to come up with innovative ways to solve issues. What I did was I put the knowledge that I had from being a city councillor to work for Edmontonians from the EA position to work for Edmontonians as a city councillor. So I have a track record of getting a lot of things done, from creating Edmonton's Next Gen to decommissioning the old trolley bus system you may remember that we used to have, from fighting very hard and getting support for the neighborhood renewal program, which today is making a huge difference because we have a big enough fund that we can fix neighborhoods when they come due, to fighting very hard to get us a downtown arena, because I saw the vision of how the arena could help transform our downtown, to taking on issues such as the Heart to Art campaign with the Youth Council on a very tough issue, which was homelessness, and working with Boyle Street. So I've had, a lot of different things that I've been involved in. And then I've done the nuts and bolts. I believe in public service and giving back. I've always done that. I think a lot of women do the same thing. That's why I love women's organizations and have participated in a lot of women's organizations. So at my core, I believe in giving back, and that's why I entered public service. I think having been in business now in the tech sector, I see opportunity to give back, but I've also enjoyed learning and applying the skills that I've learned through public service in the business sector. I find that it does apply and that you can learn a lot. I believe in women in empowerment. And I believe that women need to be on boards, that we need to be out there, and we need to show, young girls that there's opportunity, not in politics. I know politics has been a lot more challenging globally. And I feel that people feel that politicians most people don't want to be a politician today. And I feel that if we're going to have a representative democracy, and which is the core value I do believe in terms of being able to have a democracy like we do in Canada, that we need politicians to step back up who have experience and stand up for representative democracy and educate, especially young people, about why it's so important, how that can be taken away.
Perfect. And, your team is such an important part of your campaign, and their well-being is such an important part of that too. So can you tell us a little bit about your leadership style and how you ensure that you're modeling good habits for your team and reinforcing those with your team?
Well, a leadership starts obviously at the top, and I have always believed in the servant model. So you treat the janitor better than the CEO, and I live by that. I believe that you should treat people with dignity and respect, and that we're all human beings, and that part of leadership is listening to people, understanding their point of view. And what's interesting about my campaign team is we do have a female campaign manager. We have a lot of women on my campaign team. But I think what's really been exciting for me is we have a lot of diversity on our campaign team. I have women from the Filipino community, from the Sikh community. I have people from all the different cultures in Edmonton, from women who are, Muslim wearing hijabs and what that experience is like right now in our city and in Canada, to women who are connected to the African community and have also experienced some of the challenges in terms of racism, and what it's like for Indigenous women. So I feel that you start by treating people with respect, by listening and getting ideas from people, but also recognizing that the decision does happen with a leader, and that you have to be accountable for all decision making, and that you have to be transparent. And so with my team, I empower, and I did that in business. I did that when I was a counselor. I'm a collaborator, which I would say women are pretty good at collaborating usually. That's what I've noticed. We're pretty natural at that. So I like to collaborate, and I like to empower women of all ages. I think sometimes we overlook our senior population. We're always focused, and I did create Edmonton's Next Gen, so I get the focus of youth, but I also see that certainly in the tech side, I've been trying to engage more older men and women to get involved, because I think they feel left out at times. So those are some of the leadership styles that I bring to the table, but empowerment and accountability.
Great. And, you touched a little bit on diversity. Do you have a specific guideline that you follow? I know diversity, equity, and inclusion is a really popular topic to be talking about right now in businesses, and people want to understand how they can incorporate that into more an operational practice, and just ensuring that it's something that they can really follow through on. So what are some of the things that you do?
Well, in terms of our company, being a tech startup, and we're now fully capitalized, so now we're going to be starting to grow. We do happen to have diversity on our, and certainly when you're a startup in the tech sector, you are usually being encouraged to look at diversity, because if you're getting any government grant, such as Alberta Innovates or IRAP, that's one of the things they're looking at. I think that in the tech sector, diversity is in particular in terms of, there's a lot of diversity in the tech sector in comparison. What I don't see is a lot of women in the tech sector in comparison to men. So I see more of a gender gap in the business sector that I'm in. In terms of in everyday life and what we can do, I think that one of the things that we need to think about is the fact that in the corporate side, having women and having diversity on your corporate board actually gives you better decision-making capability when you're a CEO of a company. By having different people from different backgrounds, bringing them together, change is technology. So you're changing constantly. And so in order to keep that happening and thinking about, what is the next thing we need to do, because you are innovating on a regular basis, you want a diverse group with different cultural backgrounds and different experiences. And I think the same applies in all businesses, but also applies in government. I find that you're much better off if you empower. In fact, Edmonton's Next Gen was created so that we had the top young bureaucrats from the City of Edmonton departments with top young entrepreneurs, with the top not-for-profit leaders in our city. The idea was to bring them together because collectively they all have very different perspectives. And we got some really interesting outcomes from that organization that I think really benefited the city. When it comes to some of the tough decision-making we're going to have to look at, depending on what our fiscal situation is, I think it's really important as a leader who does promote diversity that you show that. So I have actually attended some of the rallies and talked to the leaders at these rallies, not for political purposes, to hear what they have to say, to see and try to understand what is it that the city can do better. So I think a leader needs to show by saying this isn't acceptable behavior, and I think that needs to be talked about a lot more. But I also think there's some practical things we can do to help both women and people from a diversity and inclusion perspective, network and get onto boards. And that is, right now on a lot of corporate boards, you have to have certain designation, and that becomes a barrier to being able to get on corporate boards. And that's affecting all kinds of people. And not everyone can, afford to spend $45,000 to necessarily get the type of designation for a corporate board. So I think one of the things we can do is look at working with the private sector and finding a program that we can put online that's not so expensive. They can at least get people applying to city boards to be on the same level playing field. And that is a way to start getting some of the barriers that do exist to change and start encouraging people who do have diversity and women to get onto boards.
So excited to hear directly from you and hear more about your leadership style and what your values are. So thank you so much for your time today. And we're looking forward to hearing more about your campaign leading up to the October 18th election. So thank you very much.
Well, and I want to say, I hope women get involved in politics. I've heard from women more than anybody, I don't ever want to run. I'm happy that in Edmonton, we've got a lot of people running, but we need women to get involved. We need volunteers. Our vote counts, our vote matters. So does our dollar. And I encourage you to look at all the platforms and get involved. It's our future. And that's the reason why I'm doing this. I'm not stepping up because I know the job is hard. I'm stepping up because I recognize that we need a certain type of experience at this time, and that people who do have experience need to help encourage people such as yourself, Jill, to consider running for politics in the future, which means, mentoring. And so that's the passion that I have that's coming through. And I encourage all of you to get involved.
Thank you for your time, Kim.
For sure.
And I'm sure we'll talk lots more over the next couple of weeks and months, and good luck on your campaign.
Thank you. Absolutely. All right. Take care. Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Bye.
Okay, welcome, Mike Nickel.
Thank you.
part of our vision, or our vision for BPW Edmonton, is to one day have a world where everyone reaches their full potential. And you know better than so many just how important your campaign team is. And so can you tell us about how you support your team in reaching their full potential?
Oh boy, that is actually a very good question. And I will tell you, my problem is I get people, train them up, and they get hired away for more money. And it's happened to me over and over and over and over again, where my staff, I'm a big believer in continuous improvement. I come from manufacturing, I come from construction. And for me and my family, we've been in business here since 1960. It's not about, the money's good, but the building is the fun part. And when you build something, it's not about building a building. That's just a thing. It's people that matter. And I've been very fortunate to be in a long-standing family business. I still work with my brother. My father passed away last year, unfortunately, but he was quite the entrepreneur, and he was quite the guy who firmly believed in being firm but fair. And it doesn't really matter where you come from, he said to us, as long as you can get the work done. And that's how we've always looked at it. And I'll give you an example. I had one staff member who had a lot of talent, and I brought that person into the office, but he doesn't have his high school diploma. So I said, if you want to stay here, buddy, you better go get your high school, which he did. And so on and so on and so on. And it is when you invest in people, that is where the big payoff comes. It's not only good for the company, but it's really part of kind of the family oriented business that we've always run in this town. And that's Edmonton, right? It is, it's community and it's family. And I can go through my career. There's so many people that we've hired, and we've very rarely have I had to let somebody go. That's always been the last point. But I've always encouraged them, you got a better opportunity, you got to take the money, or you got to take that opportunity. We'll survive, I tell them. So it is all about education. It is all about training. And in my family, we're kind of very diverse, right? We're in construction, and we've been for quite some time. But my brother and I also have a lot of education. Sometimes it helps us, sometimes it doesn't. And it's also giving that practical how-to knowledge, because a lot of times it's who you know, not what you know, and learning that skill set. The fun part I'm going through now is I got 2 teenagers, and I'm teaching them about investing, and I'm teaching why education matters. And I've got my 18-year-old who I'm just going to start opening up an investor account, and I'm going to teach him how to be an investor, because by the time he's 40, he doesn't have to make the same mistakes I did when I was 18.
Lucky to have you as a dad. And that piece that you mentioned about continued development, I think it makes such a huge difference when that comes from the top down, whether that's, the person who's running for a campaign, like in your situation, or if you are running a business or you're managing a team. It makes such a difference if you're getting that encouragement for that continued development from a mentor or from a leader. So that's awesome.
There's something really key to remember here. You can give them the door, but they have to walk through it. You can show them all the facts, but if they do, it's like some people, right? They won't walk through the door for whatever reason. Then you just have to be patient, and eventually maybe they'll come around, maybe they won't. But it's all about opportunity. You have to create opportunity for people. If you don't create opportunity, then everything falls apart. And I'm also a big believer in merit. In our family, we really, again, we don't care who you are, where you come from. It doesn't matter. If you work, if you try, if you're willing to learn, you're in.
Perfect. And mental wellness is a really important topic for so many people right now, whether they've been working from home or struggling to find a new job. Can you tell us about how you model well-being yourself and how you promote that within your own team, so that you can perform at your best and so that your team can fully support you?
So we have a very simple slogan in the office. Everybody works, nobody stops. If you do, I have to let you go. But I say that with a smile. The truth be told is I don't watch the clock. If you get your work done, and first of all, family comes first. There's just no debate about that. Family comes first. Your mental health comes first. If you're not healthy, you're no good to anybody sick. You're not good. And so let's just move it over here. We can work on it together if we have to. And I've done that many, many, many times where we've had to pull some people out of the ditch. But you know what? That's okay, because everybody falls down. I do, everybody does. So part of that sort of thing is not just understanding, but trying to understand what the problem is. And then we have to chart a path. We have to chart a path out, and what works for you. What's your family situation? What do you want to do with your life? I mean, I'm not going to be the be all and end all. Good Lord, no. I always look at it that way. And you got, a lot of people think I'm kind of gruff and all this kind of stuff. I love to laugh. I like to have a good time, especially at work, because life is miserable enough and you don't need a boss who's like that. But it's get the work done. Then I don't watch the clock. If the funny part is that I tend to attract workaholics. I'm a bit of a workaholic because I enjoy what I do, and I have to literally tell people, go home, relax. And if somebody has a medical appointment or needs a little extra vacation time, you pick it out. Just get the work done and off you go. And I think that's always been the best approach. You've got to be flexible. You got to be flexible. Talent is so hard to find. And if you're too rigid, you lose it. You lose them. So what do you want? You want productivity? You want healthy people? You want people to feel rewarded and that, the job that they do is worth doing? No, you can't be stoic about it. You can't be rigid. So it is about rolling with the punch, and just when they do fall off the road a bit, well, let's get back on here and keep going.
Mm-hmm. What you said about, you can't be your best self at work unless you're taking care of yourself. I think that is the number one priority, is making sure that your physical health, your mental health is all well taken care of, so that you can be your best self in all elements of your life, not just work, but everything else as well.
I tell people it's just stuff. It's just stuff you're piling up. And it's you can get lost in your stuff, right? You can get lost in your job, your something here, and you got to keep your eye on the prize, right? It's not about the stuff. It is about, building that, getting towards it. And I've always been a guy, the having is not as much fun as the building. And that's been a kind of a motto amongst a lot of my teams that I build, because once the job is done, you need to keep going, right? I'm not going to hold you back.
It's about the journey, right?
That's right. But that's the fun part.
Yeah. So can you talk to us a little bit about a topic that we talk a lot about in our community, is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So what's your stance on that, and how do you think that contributes to your campaign?
Well, I'm a big believer in, what the Edmonton Promise. And the Edmonton Promise is about freedom and opportunity. And what I see here in the city of Edmonton, just to get a little on the serious side, is we've been going backwards. People are getting poorer. There are less choices to be had. And if you want to talk about diversity and inclusion, you have to throw in the fact that we have to create opportunity for everyone. And it's not just one little group downtown that gets an advantage. It has to be for everyone, and you have to be level-handed about it.
So thank you so much for your time today, Mike. This was amazing to hear more about your leadership style, more about your values as a person.
Very kind. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Cheryl Watson, to our BPW Edmonton mayoral candidate interview.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So the October 18th election is right around the corner, and our community is really eager to hear from you specifically and understand your style as a leader. So can you tell us a little bit about how you support your team in reaching their full potential?
Let me begin and first tell you how much I appreciate you asking me this question, because I am a leader that believes in values, that believes in really being deliberate about the environment that you're creating. And you are the first organization, association that I have spoken to since I started this work nearly a year ago that's asked me a question like this. And I think that it's so important. And I come from a background in an organization called Intuit, and they are a very focused organization on creating a great culture, on being really true to their values. And so that's the environment that I'm used to operating within. That is unique in campaigns. And so I'm really working to try and turn the tide in politics. So when we first started this work, as I said, about a year ago, I began asking people that I'd worked with in the past, people that I had huge respect for, people that had been supporters of mine, or I had been supporters of theirs, to join this team and really help me bring this vision of our city to life. And I began with talking about my own personal values. I talked about my family's values. And I said that the first thing that we were going to do as a team was co-create values for our campaign. And then from there, we started talking about how do we create a defined beliefs and behaviors, like what's our ethos for our campaign team. So all of this really, really resonates with me because it is what creates an environment for people to be successful in. And so thank you for that question. I hope that I talked even just a little bit about the brief journey of how we began as a campaign team. And this is now part of our DNA. And everyone that joins, members of the team, and we have a very big tent type team and a number of women on our team as well. But this commitment to really team empowerment by making sure that you have a common belief system and a common ethos, I think is really important. It's going to be one of the things that really helps us to be successful.
Awesome. That's great. I think that's so important, not only for somebody who's running for a campaign, but anyone who's leading a team or leading a business. Having that shared set of values is so important. It's arguably one of the most important things. So what would you say, just following up on that, what would you say are your kind of core values that you've built with your team?
Number one, to employ the golden rule. And so, growing up, this is one of the most basic values that many of us were taught around treating others as you would have yourself treated. That we are going to do our best to stay above the fray. And at times that takes courage. And we have to really remember why we're all doing this. And then, one of our common team values as well is not taking ourselves too seriously. And really, making sure that this is an experience that we all can be proud of, and it's work that we can all collectively be proud of. Some of our values just talk about our commitment to the team and how we are going to help each other throughout this long campaign. We talk about values of passing the baton, really kind of raising your hand when you say, hey, I need a break. And so how do you then allow the team to support you? So like I say, there's some really core values about behavior. I share my values with the team that are collaboration, accountability, servant leadership, empathy, humility. And so there are a lot of them based around that as well. And we talk about those values often.
That's so great. I know it's so common for businesses and groups like yours to build these values, and oftentimes where it tends to fall down is modeling or kind of enforcing those values, or sometimes it's easy to build them and then it's hard to really make sure that those are lived. So how do you model that with your team?
Well, it's funny that you say that. And I was kind of looking over on the wall here because I have my values and our team's values, they're taped on the wall. And we have them throughout the campaign office because it is at times easy to get caught up in the day-to-day, caught up in the activity of things. It's easy to get caught up in emotions. And so really having this reminder that, you can't help but notice and then really take the moment to reflect and say, are these decisions in line with my values? Are these behaviors ones that we have collectively committed to honor? So making sure that they're visible and that they're talked about.
Awesome. I think that makes such a difference, just having them visible for people to see and building an environment where you're being reminded of that is great. You mentioned that you have a diverse team. Do you have a statement on diversity, equity, and inclusion that you could share with us?
We don't have a specific statement, but we are demonstrating that. And I think that the reason, not I think that, one of the main reasons that I stepped forward to do this is that we have a need for more diversity or representation, you might say, in the most important governing table of our city. 50% of the population are women. And then when you look around, like when you walk down the street of Edmonton, do the people that are currently sitting at our table represent the people that you see every day? And they're not. And that's why this election, I say often that this election will be the most important election that we have had in nearly a decade, because this is our opportunity to have a more diverse table that sits at that leadership table, that are the ones that are governing our city. They're the ones that are crafting policies. And let me share a little bit more about why I think that's so important. So you can have a diversity and inclusion statement, but that's very different from people that are designing services and experience from services from their own experience. That's very different. So I recently announced a Safe City for Women and Girls policy, and it's modeled after the UN Women, some of the recommendations that they have made globally. And what's a little bit disappointing, though, is this commitment to the UN Women's Safe City for Women and Girls model was made years ago by Mayor Iveson, but it was never implemented. And so it's very different when you have a woman leading our city who every day of her life really views the city through a different lens. This city is worth the commitment. And I love your organization, and because it's one of the very, very unique things about Edmonton that I still love and talk about a lot. It's this commitment to community.
That's great.
It's about this very unique characteristic that Edmonton has that says we help each other, that where we have an opportunity to make an introduction, we make it. And so the last thing that I would say to your membership is, please, if I haven't met you yet or had a conversation with you, please book time with me. I have throughout my career created events and opportunities all focused on how we as a community of women in this city are here to help each other, to lift each other up. And if I can be helpful to any one of your membership on a personal level, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to meet more of you. So there was a very easy way to do that. CherylWatson.ca. There's a place to go and connect with me. I'd love to hear your story and talk more about my love for this city, and hopefully either help you and or get your support to help me lead our city forward.
That's great. Thank you so much, Cheryl. This was very informative, and it was great just to learn more about your leadership style and your values, just how much you do care about Edmonton. So thank you so much for your time. We're looking forward to hearing more about your campaign.
Thanks, Jill. Pleasure to meet you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome, Michael Oshry.
Oh, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Today, we want to talk to you a little bit about your leadership style and understand more about your values, just to help inform our community and just lean into our theme this year of powerful influence. So as you know, kind of our vision is to have a world where everyone reaches their full potential. So we do that by advocating for women through different education initiatives and empowerment. But how is that something that you reinforce with your team, and how do you support them in reaching their full potential?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I do appreciate everyone's time, and I'm happy to be here. As far as helping people reach their potential. My background is primarily in the private sector, besides the 4 years I was on city council. And over that time, I developed a couple of different businesses. One of them turns out to be quite a large company. I've got over 200 people working there. And so part of that is to ensure that everyone shares in the successes. And so, we spent a lot of time at my business, which really is important to me, is to make sure that people can reach their potential and people have room to grow, and people do so. And it's very much a top-down approach. I really feel it's important to lead from the top. And so I did that, and really installing a bunch of I'll say values and morals that really come from the top. I'll be a bit of a braggart, which I really don't like doing, but we've won Best Employers of the Year in Canada, top 50 many times. And so, part of it is, again, making sure that people's voices are heard, and it's very important that people feel that they've heard, but in a really authentic way, not just kind of a superficial way. And so, I'm very much of a collaborator and a very good delegator, actually. So my view on a lot of ways that you can lead is to put people in positions where they can succeed, and then kind of clear the way for them and let them succeed. And I very much believe in that. And then giving honest and open feedback. And so I have very specifics on how I do that with sort of one-on-ones with people. But really, it's about instilling a culture that people know that their voices are heard, and that if they need help, they can ask for help. And then the role of a good leader is then to ensure that they get all of the help. And so there's lots of specifics that we've done over the years that I would continue to do is sort of really what I believe in quite strongly.
That's great. I know it's such a big topic for this year. You talked about ensuring that your team gets the help that they need, and mental health is, top of mind for so many people. So when you say you help ensure your team gets the help that they need, what are some of the tactics that you use to do that?
Well, some of it, a lot of it is sort of personal relationships. I think you got to find out what people really need. And so if it's sort of practical help, as far as, I don't know, just throwing out, flexible work hours or that sort of thing, there's always ways to work around these sorts of things. And then if it's something, I'll say a bit more important, not important, but deeper, people are having a real challenge with work based on something that's happening in their personal life, or they've got, or something that's happening at work. You've got to be able to have created a culture that people are open and honest and can talk about it, and then giving them the resources to help them as much as possible, and then staying out of the way sometimes, which is also kind of equally, sometimes it's better not only what you do, but also what you don't do. And so, but it really comes down to for me, open and honest communication, and that gets built up over time with trust and having meaningful, authentic conversations with people way in advance of when the goods are really, the really important stuff needs to get talked about. And so, mental health, that's it's becoming more and more in the forefront, and especially around COVID, a lot of people have had a lot of hard times with it. And it's, I do know it's hit women specifically harder than most. And, especially women that have to deal with careers and issues at home and kids and all the other things. It really does hit women much harder than it does men. And we've got to make sure that there's resources around the mental health for those people and everybody who needs health. It's not a personality flaw to have challenges with your mental health. It's health, right? And so we've got to make sure that we take it seriously and provide supports that are needed.
Awesome. And you mentioned, it's about learning about the things to do, but also the things not to do. And I agree, those, mistakes that you make, those stick with you and you remember not to do those things. So could you share some of those things that you've learned, in your years of experience, that you learned, these are things that I've learned not to do and I won't make those mistakes again?
Well, for sure. One important thing I think is, sometimes people don't want you to give them a solution. They want to find out the solution on their own, or sometimes they just want someone to listen and feel validated of what their concern is. And so, in the past, I've sort of made the mistake of sometimes, kind of jumping the gun a bit and coming up with what I think are the right solutions and saying, look, have you tried this, or you should do this, and all this kind of stuff. And that's sometimes helpful, but very often it's not. Very often people just want to just be heard, and then they want you to think about it, and they want you to talk about it and let them figure it out, and sometimes talk about your own experience. So now I kind of talk about, if someone says, look, I'm having a trouble with work with a supervisor, I'm just using a random example here. I would say to them, well, tell me about it. What's going on? How do you feel about it? Get all the much details, and then say, well, when I've had a similar challenge, this is what I've done, or this is the way that I thought. And that's it. And just give a couple of examples of the way that I've done it, and let them determine if that's something that's helpful or not, or changes their perspectives. And so, again, my mistake in the past, which I try not to do now, is to try not give them what I think is the solution, try to let them figure it out for themselves.
I think a lot of leaders would actually find that statement quite relieving, because I think a lot of people do feel that pressure to have all the solutions, but knowing that your approach has been, be there to support your team and listen and help them get to that solution. And that was actually a more strategic approach. I think that could be, music to a lot of people's ears.
Yeah, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. Typically, that's, if you think you are, you're not. And you don't have to have all the answers, and it's best to, and you don't know the background of what's really going on more than what the person has said, and they might have left some things out on purpose or not on purpose, and you don't know what people are thinking in their own mind, of course, and so you don't know how they're thinking, how they would relate to a problem that I would have. Like if somebody else had a problem and I had the exact same problem, I would be thinking of it differently. And so you can't assume that that's the case, that you think the same way. And so again, I try to give them the tools and resources and feedback and experience and that sort of thing, and let them figure out for themselves what the best course of action is.
So diversity, equity, and inclusion is a topic that a lot of businesses and communities are talking about right now. Can you tell us about your experience with that and how you prioritize that in your campaign?
Sure. So, I'll go way back. So I was born in South Africa, and I grew up during apartheid. And so my family left South Africa 100% because of that. And so I do have a bit of an understanding of how impactful being left out can be. I mean, obviously not directly, but because of that. And then, my background, ethnically, I'm Jewish. And so people don't appreciate in Edmonton, for example, I'll use a story. If you go to synagogue in Edmonton, which I don't very often, I'm not that religious, but when I do go, the Jewish community has to hire police. Every big holiday for the last 50 years I've lived in Edmonton, we hire police, and they're at the front door and the back door. And so people might understand that and not find that a bit surprising. And so I kind of use that example just to sort of demonstrate that I do have a little bit of a feel for what it's like to be a minority, not visible. So I get that's a big difference, but I do understand that. And I think it's really important to allow, of course, allow is the wrong word. It's important to ensure that people of all diversity backgrounds have the same opportunity as everybody else. When I was at City Council last term, I also I learned to understand the value of having diversity in order to make decisions, the right decisions, the best decisions. If you have a group of people and they all come from the same background, they all have the same, view of the world, you're going to get a decision that's based on that. But if you have a group of people that are very much come from different backgrounds, it could be different ethnic backgrounds, socioeconomic, gender, doesn't matter, but just a bunch of different diverse backgrounds. They have different perspectives of the world, and ultimately the group is going to come up with a much better decision. And so I think it's very important that in all walks of life, politics, business, nonprofit, friends, everything, having a group of diverse people around you ends up being a best decision. You just get a better appetite for the world. So it's very important to me.
Thank you, Michael, again so much for your time today. It was great learning about your leadership style and more about your values. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. My pleasure, of course.
Okay, bye now.
Okay, bye-bye.
Rick Conry, welcome, and thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and I would like to say thank you for being you. you've made my day.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm glad to have made your day. You're making my day today also. And being a potential mayoral a candidate, you know, it's so important for you to rely on your team and to empower them. So can you tell us about how you do that? How do you empower your team to be their very best so that they can support you to be your very best?
Well, I think everybody's got ideas, and I think sharing ideas and collaborating with people is a key element to success. And I think everybody's voice needs to be heard. Matters not who you are. And I think from that, good things happen. So opening doors and collaborating, allowing people to contribute is really the key to success. So I think I don't think I can say any more than that. I just think that everybody has something to say, and out of that, there's always good things that come.
Great. And I know it's really top of mind for so many people right now, focusing on their own mental wellness. How is that something that you do for yourself? How do you make sure that you are checking in with your own mental health, and how do you promote that within your team?
Well, it's really funny because back in the late 70s, I took a course at NAIT, and it was called "I'm Okay, You're Okay," and it was self-awareness and to understand really who you are as a person. And I don't mind saying, I think all of us have felt through COVID and some of the climate issues that we've been faced with. The lack of sunlight is an example. Being shut in for a year and a half with COVID has played a factor on mental health. And I also have issue with the current government actually not working hard enough to help people and everyday people. I'm talking everyone. It's not, when we talk about mental issues, we're not talking about people that are in hospitals and things, yet they could be, but just everyday people that struggle. And I think I don't think governments have done enough to recognize.
Is that why you're running for mayor?
There's a number of issues, but when I mentioned a minute ago, I mentioned about the government, the current government. I couldn't be more disappointed with where we are as a city today. I was born and raised here. I'm the fourth generation. My sons will be the fifth generation of my family, business owners and entrepreneurs. And I'll tell you what, we've seen so much better from the city of Edmonton, and we're on a path of economic financial collapse if we don't alter our path.
Do you have a specific, just moving on to the next topic here, do you have a specific statement on diversity, equity, and inclusion? It's something that we're talking about a lot in our community, and it's been top of mind for a lot of the candidates. Do you have a specific statement that you would share?
You know, I don't at this point, but I'm all in favor of. I mean, I think it's important, and I don't think it is something that we shouldn't address. I think it's something that should be top of mind, and I don't have, but my new website's coming out shortly, and it'll be on.
What does diversity, equity, and inclusion mean to you?
Involvement, equality. You know, that we're not that we're recognized. I support free speech, and in this run to be the mayor, I've noticed that the city of Edmonton is not hosting any mayoral forums. And I have a bit of an issue with that, because what happens then is you have private groups who have decided to invite you or not invite you based on their own agenda. So therefore, you've got candidates, not just myself, but others, that their voice won't be heard. And I think it's important that your voice be heard. So when we talk about equity and equality and inclusion, I mean, everybody has a right. Everyone should have the same right as another, and that no one person is more important than the other. We're all the same.
I love that. Okay, this is the last question. Is there anything else that you want our community to know or walk away with a takeaway about who you are as a candidate?
Our greatest threat is ideology, but our crisis is functionality. And the crisis falls on the municipality.
I know that'll mean a different thing to different people. So I just want to clarify, what do you mean when you say our biggest threat is ideology?
It's my belief that that climate change is upon us, and that we must do everything we can within our power without decimating municipalities. Let me say this, it would be irresponsible for anyone to think we don't need oil. We have the third largest reserves in the world. But our federal government has decided that Alberta's oil isn't worthy of taking it out of the ground. So ideology is coming from the federal government, and you know who I'm speaking to or speaking of. Is his mission is to close down, and he's made his statements, but it's irresponsible. And where you see the irresponsible is in debt, continuously spending money he doesn't have. You see it in jobs, in job creation. We've got the third largest oil reserve in the world, and here we are.
Well, Rick, I can feel through the screen just how much you care about this city. So thank you so much for your time and speaking with us so candidly about who you are.
Nice to meet you too. Take care.
Take care.
Great. Bye, Rick. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right, welcome Diana Steele.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So as you know, BPW Edmonton our vision is to one day have a boundless world where everyone reaches their full potential. So we do that by developing business, professional, and leadership potential in women, primarily through advocacy, education, and empowerment. So can you tell us a little bit about your team and how you will support them in reaching their full potential so that they can support you?
Well, hopefully if I am elected mayor, there will be more than just one woman on council, ideally. I am a strong fan of women in leadership. It was part of my master's degree was writing about the glass ceiling. That's what my final paper was based on. And just, trying to figure out how many women can break through the glass ceiling while also being mothers, because usually we're moms. And so we've kind of got our attention divided a little bit. And I am a mom. I have two boys. They are 11 and 14 years old. And so I've always faced this sort of dilemma between chasing my career, but also being a dedicated mother. But I wanted to try and forge a path for women like me who are ambitious, but also family minded. So that's what I'm going to do right now is forge a path forward so that I can create a bit of a pathway for women to follow behind me and move into more leadership roles. But personally, I will carry every single woman on my back on my own if I have to. I am a huge fan of seeing women move forward. I love men as well, so don't get me wrong. But I want everyone to be successful, but we just don't have enough women in leadership right now. So it's important for me to try and create that path for them so that they can have a little bit of an easier time moving forward than maybe I'm having right now. So
that's great. And I know, so many of our members are parents, so it's just great to get that perspective from you.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that you're, building these values within your team and then modeling that for your team?
Again, everyone has their own inherent value system. So I try to encourage everybody to be true to themselves, do what they need to, fulfill their own pathway and dreams. I try to live a pretty open and transparent life, and I encourage people to do the same around me. And I think that if you're open and transparent, it takes you the direction you're supposed to go in. And if you're a leader and you're leading that way, then I think everyone else around you feels comfortable to do it as well. And then everyone is reaching their full potential, ideally, in a perfect world.
That's great. And, this is top of mind for a lot of our members right now, but do you have a specific statement on diversity, equity, and inclusion, or is it something that you have some examples that you could share with us?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really, they're kind of cliche, but it's you do you, be unapologetically you, and come as you are. I have, I just have no other way to describe it. There's no barriers in my mind for men or women or any ethnic groups of any kind. Just come as you are.
That's
Pretty
great.
easy. Too simple,
Love that.
probably.
Yeah, it's easy to remember too. That's great.
Yeah.
What would you say is priority number one when you're, if you were elected, what would be your number one priority going into that role?
I hate to give you a political answer. I'm tied for two. I want to save small and medium businesses that were affected by the pandemic, but homelessness and mental health probably takes the lead on it, because again, solving that or working towards solving that, because you're not going to solve that overnight, but working towards solving that just cleans up so many other things. So for me, as soon as I walk through that door, it is who are the people I need to talk to about getting homelessness and mental health issues solved right now.
That's great. Oh, love that. And okay, are there any other statements that you would want to make or comments for our membership and for our community so that they could just get to know you better as a leader and understand your values?
Yeah, I mean, what I will tell you is I very much live by the servant leadership philosophy. So for me, I am here to serve the people. I have no political aspirations. I'm not politically connected in any way. I don't come from a party. I couldn't even tell you who I would vote for in any upcoming elections at all. So I'm beholden to no one, which I think is very important to continue to keep our municipal system nonpartisan. There are a number of candidates right now who have ties to other parties, and that means that those parties have their hands in those people's pockets. And you may think it doesn't affect you, but I promise you it will. So just do your research, make sure you are looking into every single candidate, ask where the money from their donors is coming from, and just, be informed, be an informed voter, and most importantly, vote. I'm sad that we only get a 30% turnout. That is not enough. We should have way more than 200,000 people in a city of 1 million voting. And this is probably the most important election we have ever faced in our lives, because there are 10 candidates, and 5 of them at least are huge big names in the city. And we've never seen this kind of competition before. And it's likely that whoever wins will win with such a small margin of votes. So it's important to get out and vote.
Yeah, no kidding. There's so many options to choose from, which is, one of the reasons that we're doing this. We want to make sure that people get that, insight into who you really are as a leader. So that's great. So thank you so much for your time today, Diana. It was great to learn more about you as a person and about your platform. So thank you. And we're excited to hear more about your campaign leading up to the October 18th election.
Thank you. Thanks for talking to me today, guys.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.